No busques más, ya estamos aquí. TVCom, tu espacio interactivo.
Visítanos en nuestras redes sociales: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify y en nuestra página web www.tvcomups.com. TVCom, tu espacio interactivo. Cuando haces algo que te gusta, se nota. TVCom, tu espacio interactivo.
No somos televisión. Somos TVCom, tu espacio interactivo.
Muy buenas tardes. Estamos aquí en una transmisión en vivo en conjunto con la Universidad Politécnica Salesiana, TVCom UPS y el Festival de Poesía Internacional Ileana Espinel Cedeño en su edición del 2020. En esta ocasión nos da un honor poder traer a nuestro invitado en conjunto con el Ministerio de Educación, poder presentar a Irvine Welsh, que ha sido traído por el Ministerio, gracias al Ministerio de Cultura y Patrimonio, Instituto de Fomento a la Creatividad y a la Innovación, a la Universidad Politécnica Salesiana, carrera de Comunicación, sede de Guayaquil, y al Festival Internacional de Poesía. Aquí me da el gusto presentar a Augusto Rodríguez, escritor, editor y catedrático de la universidad, y a Miguel Antonio Chávez, escritor, traductor de novelas. Les doy el paso a Augusto.
Muchas gracias, Edgar. Bueno, es una alegría enorme poder contar con Irvine Welsh en este 13º Festival Internacional de Poesía de Guayaquil Ileana Espinel Cedeño. Bueno, en conjunto con TVCom, UPS, la carrera de comunicación de la UPS, el Ministerio de Cultura y Patrimonio y, por supuesto, el Instituto de Fomento de las Creatividades. Yo, bueno, sabemos, es un escritor pues muy reconocido, con una larga cantidad de títulos, y vamos a hablar de varios temas, pero antes quiero pues darle también la bienvenida, el saludo a Miguel Antonio Chávez, escritor guayaquileño que está ahorita radicado en Canadá. Miguel.
Muchas gracias por la invitación y por este espacio, y por supuesto felicitarte por una edición más del Festival Ileana Espinel.
Perfecto. Bueno, yo quiero empezar con la primera pregunta para Irvine, nuestro invitado. Mi pregunta es...
Hi.
Hi, Irvine. Hello.
Hi, Irvine.
Hi, how you doing?
We're fine, we're cool.
Good, good.
¿Es verdad que perteneciste a alguna subcultura? ¿Fuiste ponquero en Edimburgo?
So, is it true that you belonged to a subculture? You were a punk in Edinburgh, right?
Yeah, in Edinburgh, mainly in London though, because I left Edinburgh in my teens and went down to London, and I got involved in punk there.
Sí, en Edimburgo y en Londres. Yo dejé Edimburgo cuando era todavía un adolescente, y me fui a Londres y ahí también fui punkero.
Dijiste una vez que sabías que Trainspotting iba a ser una novela de culto, pero no una que llegara a definir una generación. ¿Qué diferencia crees que hay entre ser lo uno y lo otro?
You once said that Trainspotting will become a cult novel, but not one that would define a generation. what is the difference between those two things?
I don't know. I mean, I think if something is going to define a generation, it has to be very mainstream. It has to be quite a, you know, I think it can have culty underground elements, but it's got to hit some kind of commercial base and be global and widespread for it really to define a generation as such. So cult status is cooler. You don't want to be defining a generation is a wee bit, it's a bit much, basically.
Ok. Voy con mi pregunta ahora. Okay?
Sí.
Okay, I'm going to ask my question now. En Spanish. Irving, tu novela Trainspotting ha sido ubicada junto con Generation X de Douglas Coupland, American Psycho de Bret Easton Ellis, Fight Club de Chuck Palahniuk. ¿Qué tipo de influencia podrías reconocer en obras donde las escenas yonkis o del mundo yonki es explícito? Como por ejemplo The Panic in Needle Park, donde actúa Al Pacino, guión coescrito por John Didion, filme que es a su vez una adaptación de una novela de James Mills.
So, what do you think, Trainspotting being located alongside Douglas Coupland's Generation X, Bret Easton Ellis, American Psycho, and Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club? What sort of influence you could recognize in works where there are lots of junkies seen that are very explicit, like in The Panic in Needle Park, where Al Pacino plays a character, and it's a film that is an adaptation of a novel by James. So, do you recognize any?
Well, it's funny that the three novels that you mentioned at the start there, the Bret Easton Ellis, Chuck Palahniuk, and Douglas Coupland novels, they all had one thing in common. That these three novels all had one thing in common, and with Trainspotting as well, that they were all about a society in transition. They were about Western culture and about the deindustrialization and the rise of a certain political culture, a kind of extreme neoliberal culture, where everything is reduced to a kind of cash nexus, and that people who don't have money are very much excluded. You know, so Bret Easton Ellis was looking at a kind of was looking at it from the point of view of very wealthy characters who had kind of made the right side of the wealthy cut. I was looking at it from kind of poorer characters who were from a deindustrialized culture. Douglas Coupland and Chuck Palahniuk were looking at it more from a generational schism, like a group of people in America who for the first time were going to be poorer than their parents. So they were looking in terms of the dissolution of the American dream. But it was they all had one thing in common. They were all about changes to into a society that was moving away from economic growth and was moving away from employment for everybody, and was moving towards a very sort of elitist, moneyed society where people at the top would have everything and everybody else would have nothing. So I think that was the commonality of the novels, really.
Lo que las tres novelas tienen en común es que hablan sobre una sociedad en transición, sobre una deindustrialización. Por ejemplo, Bret Easton Ellis habla desde el punto de vista de un personaje rico, mientras que yo hablo de los personajes que están en el pro de la deindustrialización. De ahí Douglas Coupland y Chuck Palahniuk hablan de un grupo de gente, una generación que iba a ser mucho más pobre que sus padres, y hablan sobre la desilusión del sueño americano. Una generación que se movía más lejos del empleo y más lejos del elitismo.
Right. Okay, my next question. Irving, has contado en otras ocasiones que antes de ser escritor intentaste dedicarte a la música. ¿quiénes consideras, además de David Bowie, que son los grandes storytellers de la música? ¿Podríamos decir que tu musical Blackpool es lo más cercano que hemos tenido nosotros de un Irvine Welsh compositor?
Well, you have told before that before being a writer, you tried being a musician. Who do you consider, apart from David Bowie, that are the great storytellers of music? Could we say that your musical Blackpool is the closest thing that we have had Irvine Welsh as a composer?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always kind of been involved in music, particularly house music and kind of DJing and promoting, and I've gone back into the dance music again recently. But I think that yeah, I mean, I'd like to do more kind of musical stuff. But I think that to answer the question about the great storytellers, the great balladeers, basically of the modern times. I think you'd be looking at people like Nick Cave or like Shane MacGowan, people who can really tell a story in a song, And I think that balladeering is a kind of a lost art. I think that, to an extent, I think country and western does it very well. So some, a lot of country and western is very cheesy, but some of the best country and western is very good for balladeering songs, and that's what they all are really. But I think that classic rock and roll balladeers, the two that spring to mind of the modern era, to me, are like obviously, you've got people like Bob Dylan, obviously, but and Iggy Pop and Lou Reed, but kind of contemporary writers, songwriters working now. I think Shane MacGowan and Nick Cave stand out for me.
Sí, bueno, yo siempre he estado envuelto con la música. Fui DJ y siempre estuve envuelto en musicales. Me gustaría hacer mucho más con la música. De ahí creo que, respondiendo a tu pregunta, personas como Nick Cave o Shane MacGowan pueden ser considerados los mejores creadores de baladas, aunque crear baladas es más bien una cuestión perdida. De ahí, por ejemplo, el country del oeste de los Estados Unidos lo hace bastante bien, pero a veces es un poco cursi. Y de ahí tenemos, relacionado con el rock, podemos tener obviamente a Bob Dylan como una figura estable ahí.
Perfecto. Yo voy con mi siguiente pregunta. ¿Cuáles han sido las adaptaciones cinematográficas de tus obras que más te han complacido, tanto aquellas escritas por ti como Acid House o aquellas escritas por otros guionistas como Stacy o la misma Trainspotting?
Which of your film adaptations have been the one that you felt most joy out of it? Like, you have made more success out of it? Just the same as Acid House, having written by you, or those written by other script writers like Ecstasy or Trainspotting?
I think they're all great fun, and it's wonderful when other people that are really talented take an interest in your work and want to adapt it, or they want you to be involved, whether it's as a screenwriter or a producer or whatever. And I think it's great. It's fabulous. It's not about it. It's a wonderful experience. The one that I would give a shout out to would be Filth, because I worked with one of the most talented directors, and John Baird, and one of the best actors I've ever worked with is James McAvoy. He's just an absolutely amazing actor, and that was just such a powerful experience for me to see that brought onto the screen, because there was so many talented people involved in making that movie. But and a shout out to the late John Sessions, who died recently, who played Toll. John was fabulous in that film. So I mean, they were all great movies. I liked them all, and a lot. I love working with Danny, obviously, Danny Boyle. But I'm going to shout out to Filth, because it was a great performance by James McAvoy, and it was a fantastic performance by John Sessions as well.
A ver, para mí todos me parecen geniales y muy divertidos. Siempre ha sido un honor que gente muy talentosa tenga un cierto tipo de interés en mi obra, y creo que todas tienen una experiencia realmente genial. Pero si tendría que escoger una, escogería Filth, dirigida por John Byrd, en la cual James McAvoy, un actor el cual me parece muy, muy talentoso, actúa y creo que hace un excelente papel. Creo que elegiría Filth.
Muy bien, voy con mi pregunta. ¿Cómo fue tu experiencia siendo uno de los productores ejecutivos de T2 Trainspotting? ¿Qué opinas que en esa adaptación el guionista John Hodge haya mostrado a la escritura como una forma de elegir la vida frente a la adicción? Me refiero específicamente a Spot, que se convierte en cronista de sus vivencias con Renton, Skagboys y Betchby.
Well, what do you think about T2 Trainspotting, in which John Hodge shows writing as a way of choosing life in the face of addiction, specifically for Spot, who becomes a chronicle of his experiences with Renton, Skagboys, and Betchby? And how was your experience as one of the executive producers of
Yeah, it
T2
was a
Trainspotting
great
in general?
experience to be. Sorry.
Sorry, we're having technical problems at the moment. Mis disculpas.
Yeah, I think it was a nice device to use, and it was good.
Right, Irving.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great experience because it was like an old school reunion, us all getting back together again. We had a great time, and it was like it was like we just came off the first film and then went straight on to the second one, you know, but we had 20 years.
Sí, realmente fue como
Yeah,
como
we had a 20-year gap, but it felt fabulous because it was just like it happened yesterday. So we just carried on, really, and it was great. I mean, John's a fantastic writer, and he just always brings... Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Sí,
Yeah, John's a great writer. He always brings something new to it. So it was a lovely device.
Right. A ver, mi experiencia como productor ejecutivo en Trainspotting, entre dos Trainspotting, fue muy buena. Se sintió como una reunión de la escuela, en la cual todos habían salido del primer film, pero fue una experiencia muy grata porque había pasado 20 años, pero se sintió maravilloso. De ahí, John Hodge me parece un escritor fenomenal, siempre trae cosas nuevas a la mesa, y me parece que hizo un buen trabajo.
Perfecto. Ha sido muy prolífico y, como vemos, también en lo literario como en lo audiovisual. ¿En qué proyecto de escritura estás ahora?
So you are a very prolific writer, not only as a writer, but also as a scriptwriter. What books are you writing right now?
Me parece que hay...
Sorry, you cut out there. What you said? What books?
Right. So you are very prolific as a writer, as a scriptwriter as well. What books are you writing right now?
Question finished. I just got what books, and then it cut out.
What books are you writing right now? Are you doing any writing at the moment?
And what kind of writing projects are you in right now?
I'm doing 4 different books at once. I just want to kind of see. Yeah, I've got 4. Yes. I've got 4 different books. 4 of them I'm doing right now. Yeah.
Sí, ahorita estoy escribiendo 4 diferentes libros al momento.
I'm doing one about rock and roll music in the 80s.
Oh.
I'm doing one about stories from Trainspotting, and I'm doing the Trainspotting guys. And I'm doing one about one of the characters in Filth.
Sí, actualmente me encuentro escribiendo 4 diferentes libros, uno sobre rock and roll en los 80s, otro sobre diferentes historias de Trainspotting, otra sobre diferentes chicos de Trainspotting y una sobre un personaje de Filth.
Bueno, tengo otra pregunta un poco más sencilla. Si hubiera un Trainspotting 3, ¿volverías a aparecer como Mickey Forrester?
If there was a Trainspotting 3, would you reappear as Mikey Forrester?
I think so. I think Mikey Forrester would be the main character.
Oh, that's great. That will be like an interesting twist for your story. Yeah.
Sí, aparecería.
Get the Oscar nomination sorted out right now.
Sí aparecería en Trainspotting 3, sería una historia completamente basada en Mikey Forrester y ya tendríamos que hablar de una nominación al Oscar.
Can you hear us?
Si hay algún conveniente, parece con el...
Yeah, I can hear you guys, yeah. There's a bit of a delay, I think, but I can hear you.
You were mentioning before that specifically Trainspotting wasn't your best novel, but you mentioned other ones. Which one were they, and why do you think that there are other novels better than Trainspotting? What is your feeling about that?
I think Skagboys is a better book than Trainspotting because I think the stories are more human and the characters come across as more human, and you see that it charts their decline basically. I think Marabou Stork Nightmares is a better book because it's more experimental and more interesting and it has more layers of it. And I think Glue is a better book because there's more stuff going on in Glue, and it spans a longer period. So I think these are probably my favorite books, basically.
Skagboys, el 2012, Glue, que salió también en el 2001, me parecen que son libros, uno en los cuales es un poco más experimental y el otro que tiene una mayor duración en el tiempo dentro del libro.
Una pregunta que lo hace Diego, uno de los, digamos, televidentes. Dice, ¿cómo ves a las nuevas generaciones y qué consejo le darías para enfrentar a un mundo con mucha controversia social, sobre todo Occidente? Pregunta del público.
Augusto, ¿puedes repetir la pregunta?
Sí. ¿Cómo ves a las nuevas generaciones y qué consejo le darías para enfrentar un mundo con mucha controversia social sobre Occidente?
Okay, so how do you see the new generations and what advice would you give them to encounter this world with a lot of social controversy?
I think it's very hard for young people today because of the psychic pressures that are on them. There's not a lot of resources left that have been left for them. Not a lot of financial resources, not a lot of employment, not a lot of opportunity. a lot of culture has been taken away by the internet. I would say just get offline, you know, get offline and get out and hang out with each other, and don't try not to hang out with each other online. Just hang out with each other face to face and have a bit of fun, you know. Be a bit rebellious and kind of fuck things up a bit. So yeah, that's what I would say. But I mean, I'm not in a position to tell young people what to do. I would be more inclined to listen to them and take advice from them, because they navigate this world a lot better than I could.
Sí, bueno, creo que realmente es bastante difícil su situación. Les quedan muy pocos recursos, ya sea en cuestión de finanzas o oportunidades. Creo que el Internet les ha quitado mucho de la cultura y les aconsejaría que pues, salgan del Internet, que se vayan offline por completo. Que si van a pasar el tiempo, no lo pasen por Internet, sino que lo pasen por cara a cara. Y que sean un poco más rebeldes. Pero lamentablemente yo creo que no estoy en una posición de darles consejos a los jóvenes, sino más bien de escucharlos y de ahí pues llegar a algún tipo de solución.
Miguel, ¿alguna pregunta?
Bueno, Edgar, ¿puedes ayudarme a traducir la pregunta?
A ver, claro.
Okay. We have spoken about, well, you as a narrator, as a writer, has also, worked in films, and that's very interesting because this is you're in a more connected to other formats of writing. So for you, how can you tell if a story is more worth writing in the audiovisual language rather than in the literary, or vice versa?
It's a good question. Sometimes you don't know. You have to just start writing it. I mean, sometimes the story has come to me in pictures, more like it's a film, and I've started off doing a screenplay. Other times it's come to me more textually, and it's just seemed like a book, or a stage play. And I've started off writing them like that, and usually it works out. But sometimes I mean, I wrote a novel, a big long novel, and I suddenly realized when I finished it, this is actually a TV series. It's not really a novel. So sometimes you can be surprised. You can surprise yourself. But I think you just have to kind of, you have to accept that sometimes you are working in the wrong medium,
Great.
Sí, la pregunta era, ¿cómo sabes si una historia está hecha para ser adaptada a una cuestión cinematográfica o para ser escrita como un libro? Y la respuesta fue que es muy difícil saber, que a veces las historias vienen a mí como si fueran palabras, otras veces como que si fueran imágenes. Entonces, es complejo. De ahí una vez yo escribí una novela que cuando terminé de escribir realmente era una serie de televisión. Entonces, a veces simplemente hay que aceptar que se está trabajando en el género que no es y salir de ahí.
Bien. ¿Alguna pregunta tal vez del público? Podríamos abrir, no sé, alguna pregunta más, Miguel, que quisieras hacer antes de abrir algún cuestionamiento.
No, dale tú. ¿Alguien escribió alguna pregunta para darles espacio?
Sí, estoy revisando. Si quieres puedes hacer alguna más, o Edgar podrías también preguntar alguna cosa más.
¿Cómo te sientes? Por favor, Edgar, ayúdame también con esta pregunta. Bueno, también has actuado. ¿Cómo te sientes en tu faceta de actor dentro de las historias que has adaptado o que te han adaptado?
So you have worked as an actor before. How do you feel in your role as an actor in the works that you have either written or that someone else has written for you as a character?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what it does is that when you do an acting part and you're not an actor, you very quickly realize that you're not an actor, and you kind of think that acting is one of these funny things that you think that anybody can do it when you're not an actor. It feels like you can just walk on stage and just and just act basically, but then you realize that you can't. There's a whole massive kind of training, skill set, attitude, preparation that you have to put into it. And I'd be the first to say that I wasn't, I'm not a good actor, but I really, I'm bad. I'm kind of I'm good enough to know how bad I am, and I'm good enough to be able to respect people who really have that kind of craft and skill and dedication, because it's the hardest thing in the world to do, is to react like that to something else somebody said, and to put yourself into this kind of whole new character. You can do it when you write because you can take all the time in the world to do it, but when you have to do it on the spot, you have to bring a whole skill set of physical and mental and psychological behavior to every encounter. That's very, very difficult, and it takes a lot of specialist training. Some people, maybe one or two people, are just naturals, they can just do it, but most people, you have to really train. It's like anything else, you have to work at it. Nobody can be an instant expert on anything.
A ver,
Thank you very much, Irvine.
hay veces que sí se puede ser un actor. Bueno, yo soy un actor, incluso no habiendo estudiado para ello. A veces se piensa que uno lo puede hacer, pero luego te das cuenta que no es así. Que, por ejemplo, yo no soy un buen actor y soy lo suficientemente bueno como para saber que soy un mal actor. Creo que para ser un buen actor se necesita estudiar, hay un grupo de habilidades, ya sean físicas, mentales o psicológicas, que se necesitan, y a veces también hay un grupo de gente que lo puede hacer natural, pero no creo ser uno de ellos.
Tenemos una pregunta del público. Hay una pregunta que viene desde Suiza. ¿Cuál es el secreto para mantenerse relevante en el mundo de la literatura?
So we have a question from Switzerland, actually. What is the secret to be keeping relevant in the world of literature?
I think it's, for me, I think there's two things that writers have to do. I think they have to be engaged with the world. They have to be out there, seeing about the world, talking to people, and participating in life. The more you participate in life, the more it gives you back to write about. So I think you have to kind of, you have to read and you have to do all that stuff as well, but you have to get out there and live. I think these two things really help you in writing. So it's a combination of the two. It's going out there and engaging with life, and then it's coming away from that and thinking about everything that's happened and being very reflective about it. And it's a very difficult thing to do because most people are either big kind of outgoing kind of party people, or they're very kind of indoors and introverted and studious. And I think to be a good writer, you actually have to be both things. You have to be a bit kind of schizophrenic, So it's I think it's an interesting mindset. I think you have to have. You have to like your own company, but you have to like other people's company too.
Sí, bueno, creo que se reduce a dos cosas. Hay que estar, por un lado, comprometido con vivir, y por otro lado, ser un poco bastante reflectivo. Por el lado de estar comprometido con vivir, hay que simplemente vivir. Hay que ir afuera, hay que leer, hay que simplemente vivir. Por el otro lado, hay que ser reflectivo con todo lo que pasa, con la vida. Y es una mezcla de esas dos cosas. Ahí existe, por ejemplo, gente que le encanta la fiesta y gente muy introvertida. Y creo que para ser un buen escritor hay que hacer las dos cosas. Hay que ser también un poco esquizofrénico, por decirlo así. Hay que ir, vivir y luego reflexionar. También te guste la compañía de otras personas, tanto como la tuya propia. Y eso sería.
Audio, Augusto, el audio.
Disculpa, de su libro, ¿cuál es el libro que a él como autor lo ha dejado, digamos, un poco más satisfecho de su propia producción?
So which book as an author have left you most satisfied?
I think they all do when you finish them. You know, you finish the book and you send it off to the publisher, and or you get the finished copy of the book back. I mean, that tells you that it's done. When you have a book, you live with it for a long time. You know, you live with it in your head, and then you're working on it. Kind of, you're typing away and working on it, and then you kind of, when you finish it, it's a relief to have that out of your head. You know, you don't have to deal with it anymore. And then as soon as it's done, you miss it, and you want to have another one in your life, basically. You know. So maybe books are like romance. You know, you've got to have one on the go, at least one on the go. You know?
Creo que un libro me deja satisfecho cuando lo termino, cuando se lo envío al editor, el que lo va a publicar, o también cuando ya recibo una copia física del libro. Creo que me deja satisfecho cuando ya no tengo que ver nada más con él, pero también una vez que se va, como que lo extraño y necesito tener otro libro ahí que tome su lugar. Entonces es una cuestión rara, de una combinación de ambos, de tener un libro y no tenerlo.
Yo tengo una pregunta, Irvine. Bueno, estamos en un festival de poesía que también recibe a narradores invitados. En tu caso, tú como creador, como lector, ¿cuál es tu tipo de afinidad hacia la poesía? Más que como creador, como lector, que tú más has disfrutado y que quizás haya tenido alguna resonancia en tu creación literaria narrativa.
So we're hearing a festival of poetry that also receives narrators, and we are curious whether you, as either creator or a reader, have some sort of affinity with poetry. Well, especially as a reader, which poet has had some sort of influence in you or has an affinity with you that you would like to tell us?
Bueno, pregunta. I think that I kind of I do like reading poetry, and you know, I read all sorts of poets, like, you know, I mean, kind of Billy Collins, Robert Haas, kind of you know, sort of Robin Robertson, all these people are kind of, I'm just pick up poetry books compulsively and read them, and I don't have, you know, I mean, these guys that I mentioned, but I don't really have any big particular favorites. I just sort of I just love seeing the way that poets can kind of can just evoke, and the way they use language, I think, and the way they can evoke kind of things and places, times, and emotions. I think that I would say to any writer, another thing I would say is, if you're a prose writer, read good poets, because, you know, they help you in your prose writing. They make your prose writing a bit more evocative and dense. So I think, yes. So I'm all for the poets, yeah.
Sí, bueno, a mí me encantan poetas como, por ejemplo, el americano Billy Collins o Robert Robertson. Yo leo compulsivamente poesía. Lamentablemente no creo tener ningún favorito, pero creo que, por ejemplo, como narrador, siempre es bueno leer buenos poetas, alimentarse de eso, para que la escritura sea un poco más densa.
Muy bien. O sea, ¿alguna pregunta más por mi parte? Yo creo que estoy ahí. Preguntas.
Yes. On my behalf, I'm very grateful for you to have chosen life and being here with us.
El tema, no le hemos preguntado cómo ha llevado el COVID en este tiempo.
So, how you dealt?
Guys, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we choose life. Oh, there's another question.
Good on you.
Yeah.
So we have a last question from Augusto. Like, how have you dealt with COVID
La cuarentena.
and the quarantine and everything?
Yeah, I've just kind of I've stayed in. I've just kind of basically hung out with my girlfriend. We've been on long walks and kind of doing all the kind of lovers things. And then I've also been writing. So it's not been much difference to me. COVID's not made a lot of difference to me at all.
Okay.
Bueno, yo estaba aquí viviendo con mi novia, tomando largas caminatas, haciendo todas las cuestiones de enamorados. También estaba escribiendo, entonces realmente el COVID no me ha afectado mucho, por decirlo así.
Qué bien. Muy bien. Bueno, por mi parte, no sé si tienes alguna pregunta más. Yo quiero, de parte del festival, del ministerio, de todas las instituciones, agradecerle a Irvine por su tiempo. Irvine, muchas gracias por tu tiempo. Es un honor para nosotros haber conversado contigo hasta Unidos. Y estamos en contacto siempre, ¿verdad? Y dile y cuéntale a Edgar que nos gustaría que él pueda venir en un futuro a Ecuador.
So we thank you very much for being here with us. We would like to have an invitation for you right now. If at some point you would like to come here to Ecuador, you are pretty much invited here to the festival.
I would love to. I would love to.
Oh, le encantaría.
Sí, ojalá que se pueda en el próximo año, dile.
We hope next year
en el
we
próximo
can
año,
have you here for next year's festival.
We can do all this stuff. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you, guys. Big love.
Sí, muchas gracias, Irvine. Un abrazo fuerte.
Bye.
Bye.
Gracias. Bueno, yo quiero simplemente agradecerles nuevamente a Miguel Antonio, que es candidato a PhD de la, yo le voy a decir ahorita, se me escapa, de Estudios Hispánicos de Western Ontario University en Canadá. Y agradecerte, Miguel, por tus preguntas, a Edgar por las traducciones, y nuevamente agradecerle al Instituto de Fomento de la Creatividad e Innovación, al Ministerio de Cultura y Patrimonio, a la Universidad Politécnica Salesiana, a TVCOM, UPS, y por supuesto a Denis y a Sergio y a todos el equipo del festival por esta transmisión. Espero que lo hayan disfrutado mucho.
Muchas gracias, Augusto. Muchas gracias, Edgar. Muchas gracias a todo el festival. Éxitos y las mejores suertes, y un fuerte abrazo desde aquí de Canadá.
Gracias, Miguel.
Muchas gracias, Augusto, por haber estado a la cabeza de la organización de toda esta entrevista, de todo el festival. Muchas gracias, Augusto. Espero que el conejo también haya escogido la vida. Larga vida al rey. Y sí, siempre es un placer acompañarlos a ustedes. Muchas gracias al equipo de TVCOM, un gran trabajo de producción, al equipo del festival también. A Denis, a Sergio, a Diego, a Karina, a Madi y a todos los que conforman el festival. Realmente siempre es un placer trabajar con ustedes.
Muchas gracias. Y nos estamos viendo hasta la próxima.
Hasta la próxima.
Visítanos en nuestras redes sociales: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, y en nuestra página web www.tvcomups.com. TVCom, tu espacio interactivo.
No busques más, ya estamos aquí. TVCom, tu espacio interactivo.
Cuando haces algo que te gusta, se nota. TVCom, tu espacio interactivo.
No somos televisión. Somos TVCom, tu espacio interactivo.